delighted to be here and also humbled to be a part of such a distinguished panel. When Naomi said that I would be a part of this panel, I didn't know what to do because I was so excited because this represents a part of my background in terms of my undergraduate degree in African American Studies and Political Science, and I also have a master's in Black Studies. So when Sister Rhonda brought to my attention that they were bringing the exhibit to Raleigh, I was so excited I didn't know what to do. So bear with me on this. Also, I wanted to preface this by saying that although I work for the Department of Public Instruction, I may have certain views that are my own and not necessarily representing the department. So keep that in mind so the superintendent won't call me to our office. One of the things that resonated with me with learning about Timbuktu is that it was a community of learners, a community of scholars. And I try to compare that to the research triangle. And we have some of the most noted scholars and some of the best universities throughout the world. But yet when we look at our K-12 public education, we see that in North Carolina specifically, we're ranked like in the bottom 11 in terms of the literacy rate. Our dropout rate for the state is somewhere around 70%. So, and then when you look at some of the subgroups, 70% of our dropout rate is around 70%. But then when we look at other subpopulations of students, whether it be African Americans, students with limited English proficiency, and we look at students with disabilities, we can see that these numbers are dramatically worse. And so one of the things that I'm hoping, and I know we'll have a good discussion here this afternoon about possible solutions and things that we can look at to bring in that legacy or that gift that Sister Naomi talks about, the gift of Timbuktu that we have. How can we use that legacy of scholarship to improve our K-12? One of the things, the other thing is we hear the African proverb that it takes a village. And I know it's been saying, throughout the world and many times before, and sometimes we just say it, but we really have to implement that in our society if we are going to improve our K-12 instruction. Education, as we heard, and knowledge doesn't begin when they enter kindergarten or pre-K. It starts at home. And it doesn't end when they graduate. It has to continue whether they go into post-secondary education, go to graduate school, or go to work. It has to be a sustained process. And so when we look at the legacy of Timbuktu, we see the scholarship is sustaining. But one other thing that I want to leave with before we move to the next question is that when we think of literacy, a lot of times we look at reading and writing. But I would assert that we have to expand our notion of what literacy is. Literacy is visioning. It's literacy is numeracy. It's scientific understanding. It's cultural awareness. It's computer literacy. It's speaking. It's the visual. In the computer world, they have this saying of garbage in, garbage out. It's what we put into our kids or allow to go into our kids is what's going to be spit out. So when you talk about the fact that students are not engaged, we don't see the scholarship that we once did. It's because of the images that kids see on television, the books that they see, the magazines, the video games. So it's not just an assault on public education, but it's assault on our community. Because what are we doing as individuals in our churches, our mosques, our synagogues, at home? What are we doing to inspire students to focus on the numerous literacies that are there?
Well, I'm a historian, so I lived most of my life in the Middle Ages, so excuse me. Profound things to say about the current world. But one thing, if you look at people dropping out of school and rather hanging around in the malls or somewhere, I've never been to West Africa, I've been to East Africa. And what struck me there is that a lot of the public spaces are actually pretty stressful, hot. If you hang out in the market there, you only stay there as long as you can and then you leave. But if you go to a school or to a mosque, that's a beautiful place. That's a place where you actually would like to be. many examples that you still see today, but I deal primarily with history, of people, not adults, but 10, 12-year-old kids risking their lives to get to somewhere to study. I mean, that's the total opposite of dropout. I mean, that's like people willing to die for an education. To see education as a privilege also means that we are serious about this, and that we actually make the places where education takes place beautiful places, not places that are modeled on prisons. Because most of public schools are built like prisons, and they are administered like prisons. And which person with natural dignity would stay there as long as they have to? So I think we symbolize, we imply to our children something about knowledge if we turn it into some sort of prison kind of routine.